Definitely, and I think a lot of the success for Deer in that game and in the series that he played against Dark was just the very crisp timings that he was hitting. Like, not only was the Oracle going in, but also Adepts get in, some extra pressure. He got in right before the Hydras were in big enough number. If he got there like 30 seconds later, that probably wouldn't have worked. And so it's that double Stargate with the perfect number of just 3 Oracles with 1 Void Ray with 2 Oracles following up that allowed him to get such a gigantic advantage in the early game.
Attacking 2 just before there were enough Hydras, even with the Fungals there, it was a good composition by Dark. He just didn't have enough units. And it was just so good to see that he understood, even after seeing those Infestors, I can break through this, I'm going to actually force this down. My Archons will continue to move in, get those kills. And Deer was just so decisive in every single moment of his most practiced map going into that first game. Now we're in the other territory here. We're going to Abyssal Reef for game number 2.
Yeah, another big choice here for Deer. We'll see if this does work out for him, and perhaps he can take a big lead in this one, or will Dark tie it up? Here we go, Abyssal Reef for game number 2. Already off to an interesting start. Deer able to take the first game. Up in the top left, speaking of him, it is Deer.
His opponent, of course, will be the bottom right in purple. It is Dark. Already telling, though, Dark is in much better form today. Ooh, that's always something that'll drive you crazy. Dark is already in better form today than he was against Deer last time. Deer's pressure in their best of 3 caused him to, in game 2, make 7 Overlords at the same time, spending a lot of his larva and resources. Just a mistake there. In game 1, he also had problems with his Overlord management. It wasn't like he was up against Phoenixes or anything like that, but still just overmade Overlords, struggled to deal with the early Adept pressure, struggled to deal with the late game Zealot harassment, which is something I think that will definitely permeate this series when we go to larger maps like this one. So I say we go to the other territory, but as you mentioned right before we got into this game, this is this is Deer's map pick as well. It's his second choice. So we're going into 2 Deer maps right away. This one was selected 6th by Dark at the bottom. And so it's not the map that he wanted to play. It was one of the maps he wanted to play the least. Yeah. So even though that's the case, we have to remember that Newkirk was always going to be the map that Deer was most prepared for going into this best of 7.
Yeah, and I think I actually misspoke before. I said that Newkirk was his most picked throughout the regular season, but it was actually Abyssal Reef that was picked the most at 8 times. Newkirk was just 5 times for Deer, so actually it turns out maybe that was a bit of a mind game by Deer, picking up Newkirk Precinct first and then right after that going into Abyssal Reef. Yeah, I mean, he's done well on Abyssal Reef so far. He is 4-2 in his matches. I think this was the second game that Deer actually played against Stark. Perhaps another bit of a mind game for him. He's like, yeah, I destroyed you on this map the last time we faced off. Let's do it again.
Definitely there's feelings going to that. Any competitor will tell you, you always remember the last time you faced off against this opponent. It's always going to be in your mind, especially if you lost it more than anything else. You remember exactly how you lost it, what happened. The extra Overlords that Dark made in those moments definitely will sting him when he goes back and watches the VOD and realizes his mistake. Perhaps he realized it in that very moment, but either way, definitely a stinging loss for Dark. He was confident in his interview, and this series is by no means really running away from him right now. But I think a strong win here would reset the momentum. It is going to be the Stargate opening yet again, as it will be very likely all potential 7 games. But
yeah.
Let's see what he does with it this time. Will he go into the double Stargate again, or just use the harassment to parlay into a faster third?
It's definitely something that you see a lot in best of 7s, where you try to get really tricky. You see it out of a lot of the top players that are really good at best of 7s. I think SOS does this a lot, where it's like you do a build, and it looks like the build that you did last time, but it's not exactly the same build, and it throws off your opponent. So Dark's going to come in here, he's going to see the Void Ray again, and in the back of his mind, he's like, holy crap, I got to prepare for double Stargate again, I got to make extra spores. Meanwhile, Deer transitions immediately, maybe fast third base and Twilight Council to get those upgrades instead. We'll have to see if Deer takes that route, or if he actually does go into double Stargate again.
It's such a great series of an example of that type of play. So we see a large link count here, just going over to deny a potential third. Was Parting versus Life at the Blizzard Cup in 2013, where, or maybe that was 2012. Either way, it was a grand finals of best of 7. It was Parting's Immortal builds, where he had so many different variations of how to kill a Zerg with the Immortals. He ended up losing the series, but it was terrifying for the Zerg to face off against that type of playstyle with so many different variations and so many different switches and fake outs. But this is going to be, make no mistake, exactly the same as what we saw before, at least thus far. Going into the Void Ray, chasing the Overlords out, late third base, second Stargate. We'll find out in a moment if he commits to the third one this time, but I have a feeling he won't. This is just what he prepared for these first 2 maps. It's a very difficult strategy to deal with as a Zerg, and not one that Deer showed against Dark at all, so changing it up already.
It's like the reverse psychology, right? You think I'm not going to do the same build again, but actually I am doing the same build again. As you said, I think this is just a straight-up strong build that he has prepared. I'm very curious to see exactly the timing of this attack, if he does the same exact thing with 3 Oracles and 1 Void Ray attacking the third. Or rather, that was the natural. It was just, you know, whatever's closer. Looks like he's going to do some other harassment here, some stasis wards.
Yeah, we'll stop the production of at least 1 Overlord and another drone as well as catch that drone there in the mineral line. It actually looks like 2 there. So just some, you know, annoying harass, no permanent damage, but still very annoying, and definitely will affect Dark's production. With the shots already given to the Void Ray, though, I don't think he can actually commit to killing Queen, so already this build is less successful than it was last game. Perhaps he surprises Dark. If Dark makes a mistake, he can make it work, but as it stands right now, it looks like it is just going to be him making that transition. Still continuing to produce Oracles, and he may go for it here, but it just feels like with the damage this Void Ray has already taken, it's going to be pretty unrealistic to expect he can kill that Spore.
That was kind of an interesting
Looks like he was controlling
angle.
these.
Yeah, he was controlling these. Look at how prepared Dark is for the ground units this time around. He loses the same amount in the 4 drones that he did just lose. But here we go. This is more important.
Only 1
Focusing
queen.
this down. The queen is just there. The other queens are not connected by creep, actually. They're really slow right now. Gonna get to work on those queens. There's no transmute. Finally, one comes through.
Targeted, the one that had the most energy, is going to continue to switch targets, doing exactly that. And suddenly, in just a flash here, with Dark struggling to manage his queens and also his defense of his main base, this gets a lot of damage. He does send his Oracles across the map. Actually, there's very few units at home to defend these Lings, but an overcharge seems to be enough. And now, these 2 Oracles he didn't defend with are going to get a few more drone kills. Dark is already finding his way down and out in this first game. 11 drones down, the 3rd base stands. He starts a 4th base, and this is how Deer approached the last series.
This is even faster on the 4th base, and I think it's because it's Abyssal Reef this time. You can get away with doing this, and what is Dark really going to have? He's re-droning back at home. He has, let's see how many Hydras. He has 8 against 7 Oracles.
Also,
you're
remember,
never going to go attack Deer in this position.
Sure.
And I love the response to put down that super fast 4th.
And remember, too, the distance between the bases and the lack of creep spread is going to make it tough for the Hydras to get across anyways. He blew up all his Banelings on this pylon, which is low, but is now protected by the additional gateways. He went double Forge, and Dark is not able to find a single probe kill with this attack. And now he's just finding himself, again, just as he was in the regular season series, down on Temple by a different type of attack. But it's a great position for Deer. This time he's gone double Forge with the double upgrades. He's not going for the charge follow-up. He's already seen Banelings. He already knows that Dark has a lot of Lings on the map. Banelings would do a number on his Zealots if he committed that same kind of attack. So it looks like he wants to follow up into a blink timing attack. And he can actually try to cancel this 4th.
This is pretty dirty play out of Deer. I mean, not like it's super like tricky or anything like that. It's just like so crisp. And Dark is having so much trouble with this. I was going to say, yeah, Dark will have an opportunity to get a faster 4th base on this map as well. But as you did just point out, with this many, okay, he's even going to take the fight. He says, you don't have enough Hydras. He's going straight in there.
And even if somehow he lost this fight, it would be such a good trade given his economy and his transition. He killed the 4th base. He killed several Hydras, and yet again, Dark feels pressured to go Infestors. It didn't save him last time, however. And let's not forget, the economy is in shambles. Infestors are expensive in gas. That means it's tough for him to produce Hydras. Deer now knows not only can he hold his 4th, he will take a 5th base. Well, the Zerg takes a 4th, he takes a 5th. There's nothing that can pressure him. In attacking that 4th base, it's not like Dark did anything wrong in trying to defend. He just didn't have enough units. He had so few Hydras, maybe 12 at the time, which all then died. He only had 3 Queens, which were nowhere near to defend. Couldn't transfuse the hatchery even if they wanted to. So Deer just has such a crisp understanding of how this build gets him ahead.
Yeah, and the other funny part about this is, you know, Protoss doesn't usually take this fast of bases against Zerg especially, but because he has so many so fast, he's rocketed up to 83 workers. He was at 81 like 2 minutes ago even. He has the strongest economy I've ever seen. He is so far ahead in this game, it cannot be overstated. I'm curious to see if the Infestors, with the upgrade this time for their energy, if this is going to work out a little bit better, but Deer's hitting a very similar timing, this time with Blink. It's not that Charizard Archon, as you were saying before.
Yeah, he can actually dodge the Fungals with these Stalkers, and Stalkers fare better against Fungal than Zealots do even. Zealots can't even attack properly when they get Fungaled if they're all caught there. Lurker Den is going to be the next transition point here, but look at the splits already with these Stalkers. Infestors in position, but this is just so much. The first Fungal goes down, but the Oracles dodge them. They finally get hit here, not all of them, and this looks like a just total smash.
Oh boy, Zergs around the world are face-palming right now. This looks unbelievably strong.
GG.
GG.
Not even in English characters, you can feel the frustration. Not even going to go back and delete those change input, types in the incorrect characters there. Not going to be any penalties in this league, but man, Dark is feeling the pressure now, and 2 times the same build with a different transition, a different follow-up with the Blink Stalkers in Game 2, Game 0 with the Charge Zealots. Deer is in Dark's head. And maybe now he does what you were describing as he shows a Stargate, then takes a fast third base, and Dark's like, oh my god, I was so focused on your Stargate openings, and you're sniping up my Queens. But it wouldn't be an SSL day if someone walked in front of the camera.
We need at least, 3 or 4 people. It's funny because he left to go to the bathroom, and then they told him to sit down, so he came back in front of the camera. But anyway, this is pretty insane right now. I mean, this is 2-0 for Deer. We were talking about how Dark is the favorite coming into this one. Deer's got a shot with the tricky builds, but I wouldn't call it tricky. It's just extremely well practiced, and the timing is so crisp. It's like he picked this one build, and he's like, I'm going to play this 500 times before my match against Dark, and it's looking that strong. I'm very curious to, maybe we can ask him later, is the switch into the Sentry Stalker with the Blink, is that just like an on-the-fly decision where he's like, oh, he's going to respond to my Oracles with Infestors, so I could just go Blink and Sentries and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, also, I feel like Dark is just not dealing with this very well. The first game, he just got caught off guard by it. I think in the second game, he was ready for it, but then didn't control his units very well and was surprised that he committed to the main base there. Well, that's going to be it for our first 2 games, guys. We are going to jump into a very short commercial break before we go into our third one, and we'll see you then.
Del Piero,
Puyol,
Ferdinand,
Overmars,
Petit,
Hernandez,
Ronaldinho, Yashin, 레전드.
지구상에 축구가 존재하는 한 사라지지 않을 이름, 레전드의 이름으로.
Del Piero,
Puyol,
Ferdinand,
Overmars,
Petit,
Hernandez,
Ronaldinho, Yashin, 레전드.
지구상에 축구가 존재하는 한 사라지지 않을 이름, 레전드의 이름으로.
아까까지 좀 달라졌는데 방향성이 스탯이 좀 변경이 있었던 캐릭터볼이 되겠습니다.
그렇습니다. 그리고 자신을 또 컨트롤해주는 감독이 누구냐에 따라서 이렇게 달라질 수 있는 거죠.
뮬러가
역시 중거리입니다.
날카롭게 슈팅 김관영.
키보드를 쓰면서 C 드리블이라든지 여러 가지 개인기 연기에 대한 연구를 끝마친 박준호가 챔십에 다시 올라왔을 때
네.
그것에 대한 기대감을 충족시켜줄 수 있느냐.
좋습니다.
운전해서
이렇게 호날두
과감한 슈팅이 통했어요. 호날두 선수 약간 블로킹 그 각도 아닌가 생각을 했는데요. 지금 뭐 마무리 크로스가 좀 올라오던지 마무리가 돼야 됩니다. 강성호 선수.
네, 올렸어요. 짧게
수죠.
호날두네요.
마무리 하나를 잘 성공시켰습니다.
침착했네요, 강성호.
자, 한 번의 태클을 아주 침착하게 발언하는 이후에 동점골을 만들어냈습니다. 자, 공격수 인형 다시 한번 고재현 선수가 얻고 있습니다.
네, 설견이 최전방적에서 플레이메이커의 역할까지 부여받고 있고요.
네. 야, 설기현 무섭고.
오, 역전 파이팅! 심리전!
역시 고재현.
페널티! 고재현의 페널티!
이건 완전히 성공인데요.
1% 지지였던 임진홍. 근데 고재현도 1% 지지거든요. 오늘 난리 났는데요, 승부 예측.
네.
그렇습니다.
레드리. 왼쪽 바라보고 중앙입니다. 아스필리쿠에타.
손해익은 선수에게 주고 싶은 마음이 있을 김정민입니다.
자, 호날두 우측에 잡았는데
잘
1번
열었죠.
깊게.
자, 업사이드 아니고요.
다시 한번 중앙 연결입니다.
컵백.
헤리케인.
이거
마지막
야야,
심리전.
야야 괴물.
야야 뚫었네요. 그렇지만
김정민.
헤리케인. 헤리케인. 김정민 타임.
이건 뭐 그냥 인정. 네, 김정민은 인정.
아레나가 술렁입니다.
네. 동점 만들었는데 이렇게 임팩트 있는
네.
장면을 선보이네요, 김정민.
What we did was so fun. Why couldn't we just say?
진짜 너 어디언스 볼 때마다 마음이 아주 찢어져. 아니 관중도 안 받는 리그를 왜 넥슨 아레나에서 해?